Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in learning and building skill with some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered in my 47 years of doing therapy. And these tools are available, gratefully, absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that page and click on the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, is the title of the book. And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 17 years to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience into part of the infallible guidance system that each one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click on it, download it, print it off, and use it as often as you'd like. You can also click on a link that will take you to a page where there's all kinds of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through the actual use of that tool. And or talking about testimonials about how the active use of that tool has improved the quality of their life and relationships. You can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness and get access to a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do that soon and often because then they can, it usually sparks comments or questions or testimonials, and you can call us to talk about those things at 563-999-3581, or you can email us. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, and you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org, whyagain.org. We're also doing the Course in Miracles experiment and the Course in Miracles workbook lessons this year. Today is the 258th day of the year, and the Course in Miracles lesson says, let me remember that my goal is God. Let me remember that my goal is all of creation, connecting with the Creator. And the commentary reads, all that is needful is to train our minds to overlook all the little senseless aims and to remember that our goal is the Creator, union with the Creator. The Creator's memory is hidden in our minds. It's obscured, but our pointless little goals which offer nothing, or by our pointless little goals which offer nothing, and they do not exist. So, shall we continue to allow God's grace to shine in unawareness, or will we become aware of it? Let's look past the toys and trinkets of the world that we are seeking and look for connection with the Creator's mind. The Creator's mind is our only goal, our only love. We have no aim but to remember the Creator. Our goal is to but follow in the way that leads to you. We have no goal but this. What could we want but to remember you? What could we seek but our true identity in you? And then the Course in Miracles experiment with Pam Grout, lesson 258, is titled, Today would be a really good day to forgive someone. She quotes Richard Rohr. I was reading one of his articles a couple times in the past week or so. She quotes Richard Rohr as saying, in the end, only lovers seem to know what is going on inside of God. To all others, God remains as impossible and distant and secret, just like the galaxies. Pam writes, the F word. You can't really practice the course without bumping into it. It's like brushing your teeth, taking a shower, ingesting a multiple vitamin. It's an ongoing daily prescription. Although the F word is widely misunderstood, there's just one thing to keep in mind. It's like Reykjavik in the game Trivial Pursuit, only instead of being the answer to every seventh question, something I noticed about Reykjavik back in 1979 when the popular board game first came out, the F word, that means you were willing. And if you don't get very good results, that means you weren't as willing. And the question might be, willing to do what? Well, willing to soften, willing to look at what I've been hiding from myself, willing to actually use tools rather than just talk about them, willing to apply the truths that we can observe over and over again in my life. Those truths like, if I have a negative emotion active in my mind, in my body's energy system, it means that something about my choice of the focus of my conscious awareness is off the mark. Something about my perception has been distorted. That's a truth. If I'm willing to keep observing after I have that experience of a negative emotion, if I'm willing to ask, how am I creating this negative emotion? If I'm willing to ask, how is this negative emotion a sign for me that my perception is distorted? And whatever it is that I think I'm right about is in error. If I'm willing to ask those questions and seek guidance and answer from various intuitive and other sources, I can make a lot of progress. I can dismantle a lot of the negative energies that feed and fuel my life experience day in and day out. If I'm not willing to ask those questions, if I'm not willing to actively pursue that process of using the tools, then I'm going to stay stuck. I'm going to be active in my creation of my life experience. And it came up, I'm not sure if it came up in yesterday's show or it just came up in the support group, but there's a message in the Way of Mastery in the Q&A where it says, your free will cannot be usurped. No one can make you choose joy. No one can make you use the tools that might help you dismantle your anger, your fear, your sadness, your pain, your guilt, your shame. No one. Not even the Creator, his or herself. Because once having given the gift of free will, the Creator is bound to allow it. So your willingness is essential because you literally are choosing when you're stuck to stay stuck. You're choosing to believe you're right and the world is wrong. You're choosing to buy into the cultural conditioning which says the more angry I am, the more I know I'm right and everybody else in the world is wrong. And that is really a fine definition for being stuck. My definition for being stuck is when I have a negative emotion active in my mind or body. My definition for being hopelessly stuck is when I am arguing for my right to have my negative emotion. Right? If you argue for your limitations, they are yours. If you argue that you have every right to be angry, you will continue to choose to be angry. If you believe that your anger somehow serves you and is making your life better, you'll continue to generate your anger and act from it. In this work, though, we're called to question the actuality of that argument. Is it true that my anger serves any purpose other than a wake-up call for me to let me know that my thoughts are off the mark? I remember about 17, years ago that I was doing the support group, and we would, on a regular basis, we would have people come in and they would say, "You're trying to take my anger from me, and I need my anger to protect myself and my family, and my anger drives my creativity." And I would say, "You know what? I'm not trying to take it from you." "Oh, yes, you are. You're saying it's bad." And I would say, "No, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying I find that the best use for my anger is as an alarm system letting me know that my thoughts are off the mark. You can use your anger any way you want. No one in this support group will ever try and tell you what you need to do or be. We're just offering our own observation about how the tools work for us and offering support for using those tools actively in your life." And again, that's what happened last night in the support group. Somebody was willing, somebody was, some would say, brave enough to actively apply the tool of the reality management worksheet and figure out what her mind was telling her that was generating the rage at 10 out of 10, and figure out what her mind was telling her had to happen in order for her to have any kind of peace or calm, and cancel all of that and ask to be shown the hidden part of her mind, which was actually responsible for holding, carrying, bringing into the moment, and then generating the rage she was feeling. And that's what we offer. We offer practical opportunities to use these tools to improve the quality of your life. So, any takers? 563-999-3581. Call that number, press 1 on your phone, and we can have a conversation. We can listen to your testimonials or your refutations, and it makes it far easier for us to be of service, to live into our intention with this work. So I'd like to thank those of you who have called in the past and have offered suggestions for book titles and people to interview. And when this call is over, I'm going to get on a call with Dr. Richard Moss and see if he's in line with scheduling an interview. That's a recommendation. I believe it came from Ellen, one of our callers. I've got somebody lined up that I'm going to talk to on Saturday. That's a recommendation from Susan Bingham. So it's one of the benefits of this community that when we have people who are active, when they do their own work and they do their own readings, or they're willing to share what they've read or the podcasts that they listen to that are beneficial to them, it's like it's nourishing because we share. So if you know somebody that you think we should interview, just right before the show started, I got an email from another woman who said, "Here is someone really making a big impact in the world. You may want to interview Sean Perry." So when I get those suggestions, it just makes this job so much easier. If you've got a book that you've read that you love, if you've got a spiritual teacher that we haven't talked about here yet, or you've got a particular take on one of the spiritual teachers that we talk about, and the list is growing. Right? We've got Guy Finley that we've interviewed. We've got Pierre Pradervan that we've interviewed. Pierre Pradervan introduced us to Robert McGowan, who's the gentleman who's on death row, but is a spiritual teacher for hundreds, if not thousands, of people. We've interviewed authors of various books, including Corinne Zupko, who authored the book From Anxiety to Love, which is something she put together as kind of a how-to heal, cure, work with her anxiety based on the Course in Miracles. And she put together an actual program for doing that. She has meditations and questions to ask and practices that really worked for her to turn her intense anxiety around. And if you want a list of some of that, you can go to mindshiftersacademy.org. There is a web page on that website that's just a list of some of the books. It's not even a complete list, but some of the books that we've read and discussed through Mind Shifters Radio. If you've got one that you think would benefit us to expand our horizons with, please let me know. Either call now at 563-999-3581 or send me an email at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. I was listening to part of the show with Michael and Jeannie yesterday, and he was telling a story about a 3-year-old who went to their parents and sat them down and said, I just remembered when the 3 of us met in heaven and we gave each other a piece of our hearts, and then I was born to you. Now, for a lot of people, that sounds pie in the sky or woo-woo or fantasy, but the more I've been around work like this, the more I run into people who have a memory of being young and thinking, they look out at the world and say, it's all about love. It's all supposed to be about love. It's not supposed to be about the drama and the trauma and the anger and the bitterness and the hurt and the shame and the resentment. And I had a session earlier today with somebody who was so crushingly down on herself because she was using what many of us have been conditioned to use, which is the mechanism of comparison. The Buddha warned against comparison. Guy Finley says that most of your negative emotional states and experiences, your hurts, are the bitter fruit of a comparative life. When you compare yourself to an ideal that you hold, or an ideal that somebody else holds, or you compare yourself to somebody else, you initiate a level of suffering on top of whatever's already there. There might already be a struggle. There might already be a physical pain. In miracles, you cannot have conflicting goals operating and have satisfactory results for any of them. And that's exactly what's happening when there's a person who's screaming at me in anger or screaming at themselves, or any might have, this rage might be originating from a more well-informed younger part of you that knows, Dad in his true nature is so wounded that it's not really a useful thing for you to get close to him until all of your wounds have been healed.
Mm-hmm.
Until you're more integrated, until you're more trusting of your true nature as love, until you're more open and aware to the idea that there's nothing of value that can be taken from you and nothing of value that can be added unto you, and until you feel that, it may be best for you to keep your dad at a distance.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next step from that is, what if I'm not 18 months old anymore? I'm not 3 years old anymore. I may have, here's a novel idea, I may have developed some more mature, responsible coping mechanisms to keep me safe than I had when I was 2 or 3 years old. And maybe that we like to recommend in this work. I like to recommend remembering your true nature. Reading every word in Dr. Michael Ryce's worksheet that starts out and says, hey, the premise of this worksheet is that my true nature, my very essence, I'll read the actual words, my essential nature, my human life, my very being is the energy of love, the energy of creation. So that's one part. That's one prong. Remembering that on a regular basis. Slowing down. Breathing into the actuality of that experiencing myself and my true nature as this miracle of life expressing in form. And the other prong is that when I notice a negative thought, a negative emotional energy circulating in my system, that I will willing to own that that's an error in my thought process. That's a distraction from my true nature, and I'm willing to use the tools from whatever teachers that I resonate with to dismantle that energy, that false belief, that traumatic energy, that negative conclusion about the world or self, that I dismantle the negative as I reinforce the positive. A two-prong approach that yields wonderful results. Ancient teachings would have us understand we are part of the creative flow. I know I've talked about this before, but Dale Allen Hoffman tells us that there's an ancient Aramaic word that was translated, through the various languages and then into English, and it came into English as the word faith. But in the ancient Aramaic, the original thought, the original word, the original concept had a lot more to do with getting centered and the rooted center of me, bringing my conscious awareness into the rooted center of my being, becoming consciously aware that my ability to be alive and be on the planet is a miracle of creation expressing in form. And then taking an action from that. Acting only after I've gotten consciously aware of the rooted center of my being. Being in that moment and then extending from that being, that creative energy. So, how do I get to be more aware of my true nature, consciously aware of my true nature? I use the tools to dismantle anything that's less than love, anything that's less than compassion, anything that's less than joy and aliveness and appreciation. Now, I know a lot of people who bark against this and say, you've got your head in the sand, don't you know how much misery there is out there? Don't you know there's a war going on out there between good and evil? Don't you? And on and on and on. And my only response to that is that it's been my experience for a lot of years and a lot of study of spiritual teachers that there's always many, many, many times more good going on in the world than there is negative. And it's my choice. I will create my experience of life by what I choose to focus my conscious awareness upon. And if I choose to focus my conscious awareness upon all of the, quote, bad stuff, close quotes, that's going on, I will generate a lot of negative emotional states, fear, frustration, sadness, overwhelm, guilt, shame, etc. And likewise, head out of the sand, head up, looking around, eyes open, doing what Mr. Rogers' mother would tell me to do, look for the helpers. I will always see more people rushing in to help where there's a problem than I will see people who are actively causing death and destruction and mayhem and abuse, etc. There are always going to be more people. A tsunami of people offering love and support, physical, financial support, emotional support, prayers, logistical support, every time there's what we would call a tragedy. And the same is true for most people in their daily lives. I remember reading in the book Lizards Eat Butterflies how even for people who are struggling with depression and anxiety, the actuality, the facts of our lives are that the vast majority of the moments in our life are mundane, boring good, safety. There are far more moments in my life where the tiger is not jumping out of the bushes at me, where the earthquake hasn't leveled the building, where the diagnosis wasn't this horrible disease. And yet, we have a tendency to focus on those few moments where things happened the opposite of the way we wanted them to, and or we project into the future all kinds of potential negatives that we can be afraid of, we can generate fear about. So we're advocating using the tools to do this two-prong approach. Remind yourself of your true nature as the miracle of life expressing in form, and actively use tools like the ones Michael and Jeannie offer for free to dismantle anything that's less than that true nature. Area code 910, you're in the air. Who do we have?
Hey, Dr. Tim, it's Jill from Wilmington.
Well, hello, Jill. How are you?
I am good. I'm calling for help. Of course. I have something. It's a belief that I am ready to let go of, it's like I know I can't blame. So this has to do with my dad, and I think that it probably in some way relates to the reason I called a week ago or so, that core belief of being unlovable. So what I want to say, which I know is not true, but I'm going to say that I have, I'm furious with him, almost to the point of, I hate him. And I have to have a lot of interaction with my dad lately on some issues that are, extremely frustrating and complicated, and they take up more time than I want to give them, and it puts me in a very negative frame of mind. And I already feel that, energy in my voice, and I can feel the tension in my body. And I think so I have this resentment, deep, heavy, hard, strong resentment that I have to do this, that I have to take care of him. I have to. That's a key phrase right there. And I think that leads to my entire life, I have felt like I needed to take care of my dad. And now I feel the tears. And I mean my entire life. My feeling is from about 18 months to 2 years old up until now. I have taken on the responsibility / burden of my dad, who I see as needy and helpless and incompetent and all these things. So is that enough to get started?
Yes. As a matter of fact, to begin with, you will benefit your processing if you talk about it more accurately. Right? You don't hate your father, but you have a lot of the energy of anger and hatred coming up, and your mind is telling you that it's caused by him or your relationship with him. So when you change some of that languaging, then you begin at that rudimentary level to change your perceptual process. And then, the next thing that comes to me to say is when you're talking about something as early as 18 months or 2 years old, you, brilliant, strong, creative, loving, high-energy 2-year-old Jill, you decided you needed to do something, care for him, fix him, etc.
Yep.
You did that from your brilliance, from your creativity, from your strength, and it's really beneficial to recognize that's a conclusion you formulated and you came to. Because if you do that, then you begin to recognize it wasn't done to you. There are certain things that might have been done to you, right? You might have been spanked, you might have been isolated, you might have been ridiculed. Those things might have happened to you. But the formulation of a belief that you have to care for your dad when you're only 2 years old is something you did.
Yes, I agree. And I think that's where I'm a little stuck right now, because I recognize that I am furious over something that I decided. And nobody asked me to do it. I think I perceived it, and that was what I decided to do, was that, I have to take care of my dad. And then throughout the years, this has been automatic, and I also think that it automatically in my life, I have taken on responsibility for things that weren't necessarily mine, and then been mad about it. Because and then generated anger. Yeah.
But not mad about it.
Right.
So here's that little, catch in the languaging that is so powerful and so effective when we can catch it. I need to, to make serious progress, I need to notice what I'm doing with my language that's programming my mind to believe I'm a victim. And sometimes it gets really subtle. But right here, if I say I'm mad about this, or I'm mad about that, or I'm mad about him, or I'm mad about her, without realizing it, I'm programming my mind to believe I'm a victim here. So that's another little step to take when you're trying to say, okay, I'm mad at him, I'm mad at her, I hate him, I hate her. Just to wake up to the realization that that is not an accurate description of the dynamic that's creating the anger or the hatred in my system. And if I want to change something, I will need to see it accurately before I can work with it and change it. So just breathe into that for a minute. This is not you're being angry about this or that. This is, I don't know if you heard when Dr. Ryce, a number of months ago, he came on the show and said, I've had a realization. Anger isn't even an emotion. Were you around for that?
I wasn't. I missed that one.
Well, you miss one show, you miss a lot. Anyway, he said, I've had this realization. Anger isn't even an emotion. It's just a drug. Well, I don't know the truth of that. I don't know if that insight he had is some deep thing from the Akashic records or the mind of God herself. I don't know what we should believe, but let's just take a look at that. What if there's some validity to the idea that instead of being, I was just quoting this for somebody in a session yesterday, so I can probably pull it up pretty easily. In The Way of Mastery, in the third lesson, he says, I know you're going to feel anger. Of course you're going to have times where you feel angry. But the essence is, I say unto you, anger is never justified. It does not mean that you will not experience it, but stop fooling yourself into believing that there is some validity to it. Okay, so if my anger is never justified and there's no validity to it, how can I use its presence in a constructive way, as a signpost, as an alarm system? How can I start asking myself actively when anger comes into my awareness, how am I creating this? What am I using this anger to distract me from or numb me out from? What's the pain or fear or sadness in me that seems so overwhelming that I'm choosing this very uncomfortable energy of anger instead of sitting with it? And if I do that before I start outlining my worksheets, the reality management worksheet in this case, I will make more progress because I will start identifying the root cause within me that the anger is there to hide from me or protect me from or cover up. So my worksheets will be more productive because I'll be going more to the root of the issue rather than working with some effect level upset. So here's one of the things that, is just coming to mind as we sit and talk about this. You were saying that whatever's going on in your world right now with your dad, you feel that you're being called to have prolonged contact with him or significant discussions with him about certain critical issues. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly? Okay.
Yes.
So when that's happening and you're calling an internet show and saying, I remember feeling that I had to take care of him ever since I was 18 months old. What do you think's going on there? Do you think that's really about what's happening in the world today?
No, not necessarily. I have a sense that it's like the tip of the iceberg. Like my frustration level and aggravation is way greater than the situation today really warrants. And I also think that anybody else might have a lot more patience and understanding and compassion because this situation is difficult for my dad too. And he's looking for guidance. He's looking for somebody to help him. And I'm giving him a big middle finger like I do, but it's full of, it's not coming from a loving place, shall we say.
Okay. So the issue is when the anger comes up in you, it's there to protect you from something. What do you think it might be protecting you from? One of the other bodies of work that I was introduced to a lot of years ago, probably even before I ran it, Dr. Michael Ryce's work, was this thing that said, so sit here with your anger, with your rage, with your hatred of whatever you think the target is, and take a breath and feel it, and then visualize it as solidly as you can. Is it a size, a shape, a texture, a temperature? Is there any movement associated with it, et cetera? And once you've got a good, clear sense of it, then visualize setting it just to the side. If you're sitting in a chair, set it over on the arm of your chair. You're not trying to get rid of it. You're not trying to eliminate it or eradicate it. You're just going to move it aside and ask yourself, what's underneath that? What's behind that anger? And if you do that little exercise, if you just feel that hatred, you feel that rage, and you make it as palpable as you can, you get as clear as you can about its actual features in your experience, texture, size, warmth, coolness, etc. And then ask it to just move aside so you can see what's behind it. It's right there. You can get access to it. It can protect you if it needs to, if it's in a role of protector. But just move it aside and see what's right beneath the anger, the hatred. If you do that, what do you notice?
Well, the first thing I noticed is a reluctance to put it aside.
Right.
It really does feel like a crusty protective shell, like something nobody would want to come near or touch. Or so I guess it's keeping people away. like at arm's length, pushing people away. So what I guess the idea, the picture that I'm sort of seeing is like a person kind of in a fetal position, but not really even necessarily a person. It almost could be like a seed before it germinates, like curled up, but it's tender and soft and vulnerable.
That's right behind the anger?
Mhm. Yeah,
that
when
the
I
anger
shift it over,
that the hatred is protecting?
If I'm sort of watching the scene. So I've got the anger and I kind of move it over, and then I see what's up behind it is that little balled up person / seed that's real soft, like it has no protective coating.
Okay, so breathe into that. And what would be the emotion or thought of the seed, of the little sprout? What emotion or thought goes with that seed or sprout?
I have blank right now. I don't know.
So just breathe and soften. And you might want to, to do this work. And basically we're just kind of spelunking in the cave of your consciousness for what might be a good target for a worksheet.
Yeah.
That's not just at the anger level, but what's underneath it. And so
right.
you're as you described how the anger is there, and you described this kind of fetal position little person or this sprout that's so fragile, you described this really intense need to protect what's behind the anger.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had that belief, you've had that understanding that you need your anger to protect you from something on the outside, and you're protecting this really fragile part of you inside.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's been there for years. So there's a part of you that absolutely believes the anger is an essential protection, and absolutely believes that you don't want to give up the anger at all.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really want to see what's behind the anger because you haven't been willing to look there for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So part of this process of getting access to it is to convince the fearful part of your mind that you are willing to see what's behind the anger, to really understand what it is that is being protected and why it feels so important to protect it. So you might have to do some work with this and explain to it that you understand that it doesn't believe you when you say you want to know what's going on under there. Literally talking to a part of your mind that's protecting, shutting you off from part of your own awareness, and say, I get it. I know that I've spent so long hiding from you and running from you that you don't really believe me when I say I want to see what's behind the anger. I want to understand that. And gently work with that a bit. And eventually, if you keep working with it and or do a worksheet on your fear of seeing what's underneath the anger, you will get through to that part of you that's the fearful part of your mind, and it will actually believe, because you keep coming back talking about it, either doing this visualization or doing the worksheets, it will believe you because of your actions, and it will offer you this awareness that you're asking for.
Yeah.
So take a breath. What are you feeling? I'm hearing kind of a harshness and a distance in your voice. What are you feeling? I'm hearing kind of a clinical analysis in your voice rather than an emotional connection to what we're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It is,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to sort of amused in a way because, so in my fury, in my big tizzy of earlier today, everything that I wanted to think just seemed off. Like I wanted to think I hate him, but I knew that wasn't quite right. And I knew that, like, as much as I want to hang on to it and be in that rage, there was a small part of me that was thinking like, oh, this just doesn't work anymore. But I think it's interesting, the resistance, because I'm not the seed. I'm not that tender little thing behind the anger. I'm watching this happen. There is that detachment of it. Maybe I am the seed, but I don't want to be. Like I'm not willing to be the seed. So yeah, I fully, yes. As the cracks of awareness happen, like I start chipping away at the resistance, I'm also aware of the resistance.
So one worksheet might be on my fear of releasing my resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So the emotion is fear, and what's happening is I can't do the exercise Dr. Hayes suggested, and my thought is if I do the exercise, it will put me in danger.
Mm.
Or my thought is I'm not willing to release the resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal would be to be able to move through this, the exercise, or move through this hatred and get back to love. Anything like that would be a good worksheet outline to see what happens. And I'm just using that goal as a suggestion for you to start to explore. I'm not trying to map out the goal for you, but
mm-hmm.
I'm using that goal that has the word love in it because it's kind of the antithesis of the hatred.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And love, even though there's a tremendous strength and power in it, most of us experience it as being much more gentle.
Mm-hmm.
And the part of you that is absolutely convinced that you need this rage monster to protect you from the world doesn't want to hear anything about gentle.
Right. So a thing I'm feeling and thinking about right now is, I don't want my dad to be close to me. Like I don't. Here it is. I don't want to put the monster down because I don't want him to get close.
Yes. Yes. Just soften and breathe. Be right there with it. There's a knowledge in you. Whether it's accurate, whether it's based in actuality or some distorted reality, there is a knowledge in you that it is not safe for you, the way you currently are configured in your mind and your energy system, for you to let your dad get close. Just breathe. Just soften into that realization. And let me know what are the thoughts, what is the processing that goes with just that much. Just letting that actuality in right now. What do you get?
Actually, I feel sort of like a relief in saying that. I'm not really what I would have expected to feel, but maybe just acknowledging the truth.
Well, absolutely. The truth is that thing that will eventually set us all free, and it's the running from it that keeps us stuck. So that's that first level, right, of awareness. The next level is that you might want to do a mind shifter about the opposite of that truth. It's safe and healing for me, and I love it when I get close to my dad. And let everything that wants to scream against that in you spill out on the page, because there's a lot in there. If this goes all the way back to 18 months.
Yeah, when you said that, my first inclination was just to scream.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and remember, it's just a mind shifter exercise. It's not a prescription for how to move forward in your life. You know, drop all your defenses and then just walk into a big mental, emotional hug with your dad. No, we're not suggesting that at all. What we're suggesting is an exploration of the actualities. Maybe I can talk to that wounded part of me that feels like rage is the only option, and maybe I can ask it if there's another way it can protect me without immersing me in rage. And that's another level of fruitful exploration that you can go into. With the breath, with the EFT tapping, if you like that, with the reality management worksheets, with the mind shifter that we outlined, all of those might help you reach a new level of connection to the wisdom within you that wants to rage.
I'm struck by that phrase you just said, the wisdom that wants to rage.
Yeah, we don't want you getting rid of this. This is your alarm system, right? There's something in you that knows, hey, there's something off the mark here. And
okay.
You know, at the level of, you know, acknowledging that you were intelligent and creative and bright even at that young age, well, I'm assuming that if I'm having the spidey sense go off and the hairs on the back of my neck go up, that there's really something for me to pay attention to. Now, it might be a danger in the outside world. Most often, it's an error in my perception. But I want to stay open to both, and perhaps there is this awareness that Dad, from his wounded nature and the pattern that we've established over the years, is something that I don't really have the strength and the resources right now to engage in fully. Okay, and that's why I have this rage come up. Okay, and then I can ask, is there, from that younger wounded part of me, is there another way that I can protect myself and that little sprout wounded part of me other than the overt rage? And some of the pieces to the seed to answering that will probably come out as you do that mind shifter.
There's a few things I'm thinking of. First, I've noticed recently how I do have this spidey sense, and that I notice when there's something different going on Like, okay, like there's an interaction, but I pick up on whatever's underneath the interaction. And then what I do is I tell myself that that must not be true. Like I sweep away my intuition or whatever. I ignore it, or I try to. And the other thing is that rage was not allowed in my family, although weirdly, we did also, I had temper outbursts. Rage did come out, and it happened, but it was like you weren't supposed to say anything unless it was nice. Like it wasn't allowed, but it happened anyway, and so it's confusing. Like rage, I think I felt like it was wrong, and I should sweep it away. And I feel I have the sense of even as a little baby, like, I'm sure I threw temper tantrums as a 2-year-old. I don't know any 2-year-old that doesn't, but swallowing too. And I just said to somebody the other day, like, I am well practiced in acting like everything's fine when it isn't. And that's when I was talking about the undercurrents that I would sense, and like I know like something's not right, but I'm pretending like it's fine. So those are all just thoughts that I have right now.
Okay, well, I would stick with that processing and that mind shifter and see where it leads you.
Thanks, Dr.
That's
Tim.
a really good start.
I appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome and deserving. I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Welcome, Michael and Jeannie Ryce.
Thank you, Dr. Tim.